All right, here we go again, guys. I know we've talked about this before, but it seems like we're coming back to it. Alignment. Yes, we have in fact talked about this before, but it seems we're still getting questions about how we can actually keep our players on track and using this system as is intended. Unfortunately, when I look this up online, all it seems that anybody ever wants to talk about is whether or not we actually need the system instead of what good it can do or how we can actually keep the players within the alignment that they specified in the beginning of the game. Well, I put some information together for you guys, and that is exactly what we're going to cover today. What is up, Internet? AJ here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to cover exactly how you can help keep your players on track within the alignment that they specified, and what to do if they start to delve outside of that a little bit. Stay tuned. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video if you do, and be sure to share it with your friends. Maybe we can help give them a little bit of information that they might not have had otherwise. And be sure to click that bell icon for notifications when we post new videos. We post 3 times a week, so there's a ton of content coming out. Now, let's get into it. The way this all plays out is it's kind of a process starting from the very beginning of the game. So we've got a lot to cover, and let's begin with alignment brackets. Now, you're not going to find this if you look it up online because people don't actually call it this. And hey, maybe I've coined a new term. But what alignment brackets are just a way of breaking up the different alignments so that you can kind of keep them grouped together within alignments that might actually work together. Here's what I mean. You've got 3 brackets of alignment. And if you go way back in the day, you really only had 3 different alignments to choose from: good, neutral, and evil. And that's kind of how you break it down here. And yeah, there's the 3 variants for each of those, but you're really only going to find characters of certain alignments fitting together with each other. Here's the simplest way to look at it. If you're taking good players, well, they might actually work with neutral players. If you're taking evil players, they might work with neutral players too, to an extent. But you're not often going to find good and evil characters willingly working together. And when you do, it typically causes conflict within the party that can be problematic. I know, I've been there. I think I've talked about it before. Here's another way to look at it, because there is kind of a limiting factor if you're playing with evil characters. They're typically not going to play with good characters very well, even the chaotic ones. It's just not going to happen. However, you might find a lawful good character working with a chaotic neutral character. So the bracket expands a little bit if you are on the good side of things. Basically, the easiest way to break it down is all your good characters and all your neutral characters, they should be fine working together in one way or another, albeit maybe with a little bit of conflict in certain cases. On the converse, evil characters will probably work with neutral characters, with the exception of neutral good. So they have one less option to choose from there. The reason for doing this is to limit conflict within the party and kind of help keep your players on track. You're typically not going to find a lawful good paladin working with any sort of evil character, and if you do, there's going to be conflict. Either that, or they might be pressured into doing something that the character might normally do. And this is something that can happen on a player base, not a character base. So kind of keep your eyes open for it. If when you're setting up your game, you use these alignment brackets, it'll help you try to reduce problems down the line. And that actually brings us right into our next topic. Prior to the game, discuss your expectations with your players. I know it sounds silly because session 0 is the thing, but when it comes to alignment especially, sometimes you actually need to sit down and have this conversation with your players. Remember that when you're talking with your players in session 0 about what their expectations are, don't forget to address your own. If you go into the game letting them know that you have an expectation of their alignment being part of it and that they are going to play accordingly, at least to some degree with their alignment, telling them first and addressing it beforehand should actually help ease tensions in the future, should they make a judgment call that might not necessarily fit within the alignment. Now, say you got this far and your players are actually playing the game in accordance with their alignment, just like you want them to. Give them inspiration. It's a tool not used very often by DMs, believe it or not. It gets addressed, but it doesn't get used very much. However, the main focus here is that you want to reward your players. They're doing what you want them to do, and if a character gets into a situation where their decision making could go either way, you might as well reward them for doing what would be best for that character in accordance to their alignment and their moral compass. Now, the way that ties into our next topic is that, well, they actually need situations for their alignment to be able to shine in, for it to be relevant. So that's kind of on you. Give them opportunities for their alignment choices to come forward and actually mean something. By giving them situations where their alignment can shine, you're actually doing things meaningful to the story that might come back down later down the line and actually have an effect on the story. A good choice that they made maybe affects a townfolk that they come across later on, and they might get a reward out of it in another way. And then sometimes there's just the satisfaction of seeing something good done that affects even fictional characters in a positive way. It depends on your players, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. If you have players that actually care about the NPCs and the environment they're in, this is actually something that could just make your players have that warm, tingly feeling when they do something good. Or evil, depending on how you look at it. You see, don't forget, you can run evil campaigns too, and all of this applies in that same situation. If they're going to be playing an evil character, give them opportunities for that evilness to shine through. Especially in evil campaigns is where you're going to see the opportunity to let their alignments shine through, and it's definitely going to be rewarding for them as well as for you, depending on how you play it. And that's going to bring us to our last topic. Whether they're good or they're evil, there's always going to be consequences to their actions. Now, am I saying punish them? No, don't punish them. Okay, maybe punish them a little. After all, depending on what they do, it could totally warrant it. That being said, keep the punishment in line with the action. You see, one of the biggest complaints about alignment out there is that more often than not, DMs just use it as a means of punishing their players when they don't play along with the way they want them to. It's one of the main arguments about the necessity of alignment, and I totally get that. However, even when you're starting your game up, let your players know that there will be consequences to their actions. That way down the line, when they turn into a bunch of murder hobos, they completely understand why the full wrath of the city guard is coming down on them out of nowhere. Well, it's not so out of nowhere, is it? This even applies in an evil campaign. Yes, your players want to go out and do some totally evil things and conquer the world. Well, they're going to make some enemies along the way. That is a consequence. There are many different ways that things can be affected by the good and the bad that the players do. And don't just punish the bad things that they do, but find ways to reward the good that they do in the world that you've created. Good is a consequence too. Now, at the end of the day, anybody who's been following the channel knows how I feel about alignment. Not everybody's going to agree with that. There's a debate about it for a reason. Do you necessarily need to use it in your game? No, you don't have to. But it is a tool that can be used in ways to create more fulfilling situations for you and your players. And that's all it was ever meant to be, a tool. Don't forget that. I'll post a link to my old video on alignment to give you guys a little bit of an explanation of the way I feel about it if you haven't seen it already, and why it's still relevant in D&D. I definitely recommend you go check it out and take a look. But what is your take on the situation? How do you feel about it? And what other tricks do you guys have that might actually help encourage players to use the alignment system? Leave a message in the comment section down below and let me know what you guys think. Or if you have more questions, let me know. This video actually came from a question posted in the comments, and I love being able to help you guys out. So just let me know what questions you guys got, and I'll see what I can do to help you. In the meantime, hope you guys had a fantastic week. It is Friday, the week is done, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Happy gaming.